Artists help us to see our world more clearly. What aspects of the world can they help us to see more clearly now?
I'm Naomi Beckwith, and I'm about to give you a look at the MCA's new exhibition, The Long Dream. The Long Dream is curated collectively by the museum's entire artistic division. Against the backdrop of a global pandemic, a renewed reckoning over racial justice, and economic inequality,
The Long Dream invites visitors to see the city of Chicago, the world, and themselves through the eyes of more than 70 local artists whose work offers us ways to imagine a more equitable and interconnected world.
through the eyes of artists, The Long Dream engages visitors around several core themes. How artists make work in the studio or at home with available materials. The psychological effects of uncertain times, structural inequalities in society, and our expanded digital lives. We'll stop at a few artworks throughout the galleries to dive deeper into those themes and to reflect on the issues they bring up.
What invisible forces and ghosts shape the world we live in now?
The artist in the Apparition section of The Long Dream speaks to aspects of our world that go unacknowledged or unseen in our daily lives. In some cases, directly invoking the ancestors that have come before us. Bethany Collins and Nate Young are both artists who think about the language and the stories that they have inherited from the generations who have come before them.
Young's series of drawings, The Grandfather Paradox, is an ongoing conversation between the artist and his grandfather, whose journal led Young on a journey to uncover a family secret.
Bethany Collins uses much more public language. In this case, text from missing persons flyers from the 19th century, mostly text by African Americans who are looking for lost loved ones. And though the text begins to disappear on this crumpled, torn red paper, this historic language looks and sounds really familiar to us in our own lifetime. Ghosts are not always the spirit of the deceased. They can also be the people present in our midst right now that we do not always see.
Moises Salazar has created this installation, Cuerpos Desechables, or Disposable Bodies, as a recreation of migrants who frequently make dangerous and often fatal crossings in and out of our city and our country. These are people who often go unacknowledged, hinting at the disposability of Salazar's title.
In a moment when many people are feeling isolated, the artists in this anxiety and intimacy section of The Long Dream reflect on how that isolation affects us and the way we look at the world. As they grapple with challenging subjects, from the personal to the political, their work invites us to look inward at our own private narratives and outward to our social world.
One of the most noticeable features in anxiety and intimacy is the frequent reference to tears. William Pope.l's crying painting evokes tears of distress, while Clear Pentecost blows glass into teardrop shape, each of which holding material representative of recent environmental destruction. Meanwhile, the artist Ryan Nault magnifies droplet figures over a landscape in a way that mirrors our current fears about airborne illnesses. Other artists in this section reflect on what it means to maintain a relationship and intimacy during an age of high anxiety. Sarah Bastros's efforts at affection are a mocking yet wholly sincere look at how difficult it can be to love oneself in the face of social rejection, let alone love another person. Meanwhile, Gina Valentine's Aporia fault lines look at what it's like to hold a nation together now. The artist made drawings of states most affected by the 1965 Voting Rights Act, but she made the works with materials that will crumble bit by bit and disappear over time. Valentine reminds us that the long dream of a unified, healthy, and whole landscape in our country is one that is a worthy fight, but not a given.
What can you make with what you have on hand? We are in a moment when many people, non-essential workers especially, are adapting to working away from our usual workspaces. In this section, close at hand, artists experiment with the materials they have on hand and focus on their own bodies and homes as spaces for artistic exploration.
Selena Trepp insists on working with humble materials that she continuously recycles from other projects, animating them into something magical, such as in her film Rotation. Rather than working in a traditional studio, many artists make the home, the family, and intimate relationships the very material of their work. For instance, Alberto Aguilar's subject is always his house and family. He'll give himself strict parameters, such as making a drawing of his son within the same number of minutes as his son's age. Or he'll make whimsical sculptures by manipulating his living room furniture. Photographer Wang Yushu takes hundreds of photographs in his bedroom and then hangs those carefully scaled photos within the same space to create a sense of infinity, where you sometimes can't tell the difference between the physical room and the reproduction of that site. Both Xu and Aguilar ask us to question how well do we really know the people and things in our most intimate environments, and in turn, how do we recognize how deeply we are changed and affected by those people and things?
How do you take agency within a dream?
What can we do? Despite experiencing uncertainty and anxiety, it's also the case that artists help us to remember that many people have come before us to offer us a sense of possibility. The works in the Lucid Dreaming section of the exhibition give us a sense of clarity and help us to imagine a better future. Some works are humorous and tongue-in-cheek, but many have an understated gravity. touching on nightmarish themes such as physical violence and war.
Aaron Hughes is a veteran who served in Iraq and literally brings the war home. His series of drawings, 21 Days to Baghdad, Chicago, are surreal landscapes, a mashup of buildings destroyed in Baghdad and buildings torn down by other forces right here in Chicago. Tanika Lewis Johnson's Folded Map project sought out people who live on streets that run the length of Chicago and who live at certain address numbers on the south side and the same number on the north side. In a simple gesture, Lewis Johnson brings together those address pairs in portraits and in conversation in a way that circumvents the entrenched segregation of this city. Many people are thinking about radical political moments in the past, such as the 1960s. The Floating Museum Collective brought together people in their monument reassembly to refigure a protest that we now know from a 1968 Cecil McDonald photograph. The Floating Museums Act is one of tribute to the radical moments of decades past, but also a reminder that seismic things happen. People work in tandem together.
Thank you for joining me for this video tour of The Long Dream. The exhibition runs from November 7th, 2020 till January 17th, 2021 in the Griffin Galleries on the museum's 4th floor.
If you have the chance to visit the exhibition at the museum, please be sure to pay attention to the wall text. These special words were written by promising civic leaders and by youth writers from across the city. You can find out more about this special label writing project at mcachicago.org/thelongdream.
And then there's the Dreamscape, the exhibition's culminating event featuring time-based and live performances of artists featured in The Long Dream.
The Dreamscape takes place online on January 16th, 2021. For more digital offerings and virtual programming, visit us online at mcachicago.org. And thank you so much.